Roger that, sir.
So where'd you grow up and what was life like as a kid?
Well, I grew up in Las Vegas and I was an only child, which was kind of lonely. And my parents were interesting folks. They had one kid because, well, zero would be a little awkward, but they weren't going to have more than one. They had their own lives. And so for me and my wife, we revolve around our kids. My parents weren't like that. So I was kind of a free range kid, which is very 70s. And, so if I wasn't at school, I was outside. And we played guns. And we went to everyone else's house. We all had our toy guns and we'd be out in the bushes and drinking from the hose. This is Vegas. And in the summer, you quickly learn, let the water run for a little while before you drink it. Because that water is steaming hot when it comes out of the hose. And, my parents were like, get out of the house, come back when the street lights come on. And that's how we all were. So this is out in the desert. And so I grew up shooting motorcycles. I didn't have any motorcycles. Kind of a disappointment, but a lot of people did. It was fun being a kid. And then a big part of my life is, because they only had one kid, they didn't want me to get broke. So no contact sports, which really disappointed me. I'm a competitive person. And so it's in recess in school, we used to play football during recess. And it was full tackle, bloody and everything. So that was fun. But I watched the 1984 Olympics, and it's Vegas, so everyone had pools. And you just swam. And I watched the swimming. I remember I watched Rowdy Gaines win the gold medal in 1984, and he's like the big announcer for swimming. And after the 84 Olympics, I told my parents, like, I want to try that. And that gave me something to do. And my personality is go hard all the time, which is very much a swimming thing. So I did pretty well. I progressed pretty quickly. And so I started swimming at 13. At 14, I was a state champion. And I just kept getting better. And Las Vegas swimming at that time, we were very fortunate. We had a gentleman who had some money who was willing to invest in the sport, brought in some really good coaches, and built up a strong swimming program. And there were some really talented swimmers in my cohort, and we all competed against each other. We had national champions. We had some guys in Nevada who were American record holders. And ironically, what got me interested in swimming, watching Rowdy Gaines win the gold medal. Rowdy Gaines actually came to Vegas and was one of my coaches.
No way.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate. I have to thank Mr. Carson, Dick Carson. I don't even know if he's still alive. He put his money where his mouth was, and I certainly wouldn't have enjoyed the success I did without his investment in Nevada swimming. So I was very thankful for that. And his kids swam. His kids were very good swimmers, very good people. He raised a good family. And so my sophomore year in high school, I won state championship for high school. So it wasn't an age group, it was a high school championship. And the first letter I got congratulating me was from the coach at West Point. And he said, hey, if you're interested, let me know. And I had no intent of going to the military. I didn't know much about West Point. My parents were very, very supportive of my college plans. They said, you can go anywhere you want to college, but you're paying for it. So, my test scores were good. I had the athletics they were looking for. And it was kind of the first mover advantage. That was the first person to congratulate me was, I think it was Coach Ryan, who wasn't the coach when I got there. It's like, he recruited me his last year. So he didn't coach me at West Point, but I went to West Point primarily because they sent me a letter first after it just got in my head. And I'm like, well, I can afford it. And, it's Division 1A and I get to be an athlete and the challenge attracted me. I was a bit of a pain in the ass. And like everyone said, there's no way you're going to make it through West Point. So that just kind of got me. I'm like, well, fine, I'll show you. And should have listened to him because it sucked and I hated West Point, but I did make it through, and that forced me into an Army career. And I hated West Point, still hate it, haven't been back yet, don't want to go back. Can't stand West Point, love people I went with. I had some, made some great lifelong friends there, and but that just wasn't my thing. But I love the Army, so I got commissioned. Started off in the Corps of Engineers. I went to Germany, first tour, had a blast. Loved being a lieutenant, loved soldiering, loved being with soldiers. I didn't love being soaking wet in Hohenfels and Grafenwehr and covered in mud and doing the wash rack. But went to Macedonia, did the UN Protection Force there, had a great time. Next year I went to Bosnia, spent a year there, absolutely miserable, had a great time. So that first year, we just drove up to a hilltop, planted some tents, said, all right, this is where we're hanging out. Then our tracks and our trucks just tore up the nice grassy hill. It was just muddy hell for about 4 or 5 months till we got a bunch of gravel set down and everything. And so my intent was I was going to get out as fast as I could, but I liked it. I got married, met my wife. She was visiting West Point my senior year, met her, got married after she got her master's degree. She came and joined me. So I went to Bosnia and she traveled Europe. She had a great deal on that one. And liked what I was doing. So then I went to Hawaii. And Hawaii didn't go so well. Loved soldiering, but I had a boss who just didn't want any bad news. And when some important vehicles were broken, I said, hey, these things are broken. My boss was like, no, they're not. So I said, yes, they are. And I officially reported them. And that was the end of my active duty career. I was pretty pissed off, ended my career. So I resigned August 2001. Because there's no reason to hang around. There's going to be no wars, and my career is a dead end at that point. I had a good time. I had 8 years and was going off, and so I got a great job with this little company out of Texas, Houston, Texas, and the company was Enron. So my introduction to the civilian world was I flew into Houston on a Thursday. I got fired on Friday. Monday, they gave me a very generous severance package. And then Tuesday, they filed for bankruptcy. So that was welcome to the civilian world. Now, in between my starting at Enron and resigning, 9/11 happened. But initially it was a pretty small response. We were just sending some SF Bubbas to Afghanistan, and that was kind of it. There really wasn't the feeling that this was going to be a big war after September 11th. 10th Mountain went to, I think it was Uzbekistan. And so this was all before Anaconda, which I think was like December 2001, somewhere around there. But I said, okay, we are at war. And I'll join the Guard. So I joined the Texas Guard. And I said, look, the big mistake of my career was I should have been an infantryman. So I said, look, I want to join the Texas Guard, but I'm only joining as an infantryman. That's what I should have been. I didn't know that at West Point. I wish I had figured that out. I should have listened to people who were smarter than me. I would say this, if I was a smarter person, I would have known this right from the get-go, because pretty much everyone I knew whose father had served, so the legacy, multi-generational West Pointers, they all went infantry, every one of them. A smart man would have looked at that and said, maybe they know something I don't, but I'm not a smart man. There's a reason for it. I mean, hell, if you're going to be a soldier, be an infantryman. But I didn't even know I'd like being a soldier because I hated West Point. So I went engineers. It seemed like it would be a better deal if I got out, which is true. On the civilian side, being an engineer has paid off a lot more, but infantry is the essence of being a soldier. So joined the Texas Guard, did the civilian thing part-time, and then I realized I like being a soldier a lot more than I like being an engineer in Houston. And then a buddy of mine called me up. He was in Oregon. And he said, hey, our S4 just failed his physical, and we're going to Iraq. First push with first cav. Do you want in? I talked to my wife, and she's like, go on, play soldier. So quit my job, moved to Oregon, didn't even have orders. I just bought my own ticket and just flew to Oregon on my own. They signed me up. I eventually got reimbursed. It took months to get it all fixed. And we were a week from going wheels up. And then Turkey pulled their stunt, and they pulled 1st Cavalry Division off the what's called the TIPFID, Troop Phase Flow, I want to say diagram, but the list of units when they go in and when they go out, and it's a logistics tool. And they pulled us off, and they gave it to 4th ID, because 4th ID was supposed to go through Turkey, and so Turkey got that slot. And instead of going to Iraq, we were guarding the chemical depot in Umatilla, Eastern Oregon, out in the middle of the Oregon desert. That is not what I signed up for. But at the exact same time, missile defense was just getting started. George Bush restarted the missile defense, and they were hiring a whole bunch of people to start up missile defense. So I signed up, I applied, I got selected, and that brought me to Alaska. So I was fortunate, I got to command the first missile defense crew in Alaska, Charlie Crew. We walked into the room, we'd trained for a year, walked in the room, turned on all the equipment as we've been trained to, and that started the very first shift, which as far as I know, that has gone uninterrupted for the past, 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So for 20 years, and I commanded the first crew that started that uninterrupted, as far as I know, string of defenses against missile attack on the United States. That was in Fort Greely, Alaska, which is in the interior. And I did 2.5 years there. And then we had to get out of the interior, and it was shift work. I hated shift work. And then I got another job down in Anchorage with the Alaska National Guard, something called a Civil Support Team, which is a chemical response unit for domestic response. Had a great time there. And here I was, 5 years since going full-time in the Guard so I could go to Iraq, and I still hadn't deployed. And then our state was tasked to provide a team, an embedded transition team, the ETTs, they call them the MITS, Military Integrated Training Team, I think for Iraq, Afghanistan, they were called ETTs. So we were on the hook for an ETT. And I was like, hey, I need to go, I need to deploy. And again, I talked to my wife, and she's like, yeah, I get it. Because, yeah, even though I did a year in Bosnia, and it was a hard tour, and we took casualties, it wasn't a combat tour. I didn't have the combat patch, it didn't count. So I volunteered to go to Afghanistan. I worked hard to make sure our ETT got a good mission. I did a lot of maneuvering on that. I was the deputy commander. Our commander wasn't the most forward-leaning person, so I took a lot of that. First half of my tour, I was a staff guy, which I was disappointed in, because they take the ETT and then they just took everyone and they just scrambled them and threw them out there. We were not allowed to maintain our integrity and do the mission we thought we would, which happens. I was a staff guy, and it was in Kandahar City, so I wasn't like in the big bases. We were in there's 20 Americans in our little base in Kandahar City. We ran a lot of missions, wasn't a lot of combat, and then I took my mid-tour leave, went home, and when I came back, the colonel in charge said, listen, I need someone to take over up in Zabul. I just come in on a convoy, and he's like, I want you to take that convoy, I want you to drive up to Zabul, I want to tell the current commander he's fired. He comes back, and you take over. Do what you do, you're a good officer, don't make me look bad. That was the only guidance I was given. And I'm not sure I pulled that off. So that got me the command of what was called the Provincial Lead Mentor Team, so the police in Zabul province. So we had about 1,200 cops, and I had 4 teams in 4 different bases throughout the province. It's on the Pakistan border. It's in Regional Command South, right on the border with East. So just to our north were the Poles in Ghazni, and we worked with the Romanians, and I am of Romanian descent, in Zabul. And it was kind of ad hoc, and the ETTs were doing a lot of training. So the ETTs were with the Afghan Army, the ANA, Afghan National Army. The PMTs, Police Mentor Teams, were with the police, the ANP, Afghan National Police. And the ANP were just out there slinging lead like every damn day. It was where all the action was, and the guidance from my boss's boss was, if they go, you go. He was an SF guy, and their attitude is you can't do your job as a mentor unless you're in combat with them. And so no major in the National Guard should ever have had so much fun and such a fulfilling combat tour than I did. I was extremely fortunate. No American under my command failed to come home. We had a couple wounded, but they all made it home alive. So, that was, I lost a ton of cops. I felt bad every time, but my philosophy was it's their country. Better them than me. Better them than the Americans who came there. So I had a great tour. I wrote about it, obviously, in my book. I wrote a bunch of articles about it, the lessons I learned in combat and how we could do better. And after a few years of writing those articles, after I came home, I came to the realization that it doesn't seem like we're real interested in winning this war. We just want to spend a lot of money and go there and buy equipment and give it to the Afghans. But the strategy was losing, and it was intuitively obvious to anyone who was on the ground. Anyone outside of Kabul could see this is not working. And there was a documentary, I think it was by Vice, back when they were a good channel. I think it's called This Is What Winning Looks Like. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep, I think I watched it.
Yeah, it was like the Marines, I think it was in Helmand, Kandahar area. Mm-hmm. And this Marine captain's like, what the hell? And they're raping kids and I can't, So everyone outside of Kabul knew we were losing. And that's why I was so frustrated. I wrote these articles in good faith, like, hey, here's very simple solutions that we could do to be better. And man, just nobody wanted to be better. So that got frustrating. So I came back, got promoted to lieutenant colonel, did some jobs, tried to go back to missile defense. That didn't work out. Went to war college, great time. Thought I was gonna have a pretty good follow-on position. Kind of got, I don't know exactly what happened, but it didn't go the way that people thought it was gonna go. I think there's some back deal shenanigans, which happens in the Guard. Guard is very political at a much lower rank than the active duty is political. Did 2 years in DC, hated every minute of it. Again, dealing with people who are just interested in spending money and not winning wars. So as soon as I could retire, after I owed 2 years because of war college, I got out, moved to Kansas City, and started working for Department of Energy, the National Nuclear Security Agency. Kansas City builds the non-radioactive parts for our nuclear deterrence. And I'm a big fan of nuclear deterrence. I've written on nuclear deterrence. My paper in war college was about nuclear deterrence, specifically via China. So that's still fulfilling work, still contributing back to the national defense. Moved back to Knoxville, where my wife grew up, be closer with her family, and got another job working in support of the Oak Ridge Y-12 complex, and that's where I am now. So that's kind of the journey.
All right, let's go back to your deployment that you wrote about in your book.
Yeah.
I guess first, how does that conversation go with your wife? You're a family man at this point. How old were your kids at that point? I guess your oldest was?
My oldest was about 10.
Okay.
And my youngest, when I left, had just turned 1.
Wow. So how does that conversation look going to a war zone?
We don't focus on it too much.
Okay.
She knew I had to go for personal and professional reasons, and she's a great wife. And it was very hard for her. And I will say this, for the families, I love being deployed. I love being a soldier. I love being with soldiers. I love being in combat. I'm a competitive person, and there's no sport like combat. It's the ultimate manifestation of competitive nature in men. It's primal. Men are made to defend what's theirs and to take what's theirs in mortal combat. It scratches like I said, a primal itch that nothing else in the world does. But for the families, it's just dad's gone and he could not come back. Deployment is 10 times harder for the families. And I think I underestimated the impact to my family. I would still go. I had to go. I was a soldier, and there was a war. And I know guys who had done 2 and 3 tours, and I had a number of friends at that point who had already died in combat. There's no way I could have not gone. But I did not appreciate the amount of stress that put on my wife, particularly my family as a whole. For my oldest son, he's like, at 10 years old, I became a man. And he did, and that shaped him as who he is. It shaped all the kids. Probably my youngest two, not so much. They were pretty, 3 and 1. But for my 2 oldest, it affected them in positive ways and in negative ways. For my wife, there were very few positives. It was negatives. It affected her health. Obviously, she worried. No matter how much life insurance you take out, it's not quite enough. And life insurance only goes so far. So I guess we didn't talk about it because she knew who she married, and she knew I had to do this, and she knew whatever she said, she didn't want me to worry too much, which I appreciate about that. But yeah.
Sounds like a good woman.
She's a hell of a woman.
Do you have any advice for men and women that will be deploying on how to manage their family? Because going to even being in the military, from what I understand, is just very difficult on families.
One of the hardest things in the Guard is it was only a small team. So there wasn't, like when I went to Bosnia, I went with all of 1st Armored Division. And we were in Germany, so we were in that community. So I was married when I went to Bosnia, but every wife was there. They all met together. They all did the trips through Europe together. There was that community of wives who were suffering the same. And we didn't have any kids. So it's one thing if you lose your husband and you don't have kids. It's another thing when you've got a bunch of kids and you lose your husband. So it was kind of a different feel, but they had that, the family support group back there. Didn't have that when I deployed to Afghanistan, because there's only 5 or 6 of us who had wives in the Anchorage area, and they weren't friends previously because it was an ad hoc unit that was brought together. This wasn't an organic unit where we already knew each other previously. We got to know each other. I knew one of the people on the team quite well. The rest, 3 of them weren't even from Alaska. They joined the Alaska Guard just so they could deploy.
Wow.
Yeah. So very, very different scenario. So it's tough in the Guard because you don't deploy as a community. You really deploy as an individual. And so who does my wife complain to? And you said it, you drive her nuts. Oh, I know just what you mean. Bill went on a business trip. He's gone for 2 weeks. And my wife wanted to strangle her. It's like, no, bitch, you do not know what I feel like. Bill went on a business trip and was banging hookers in Vegas. Probably have to edit that out. Bill is not going to Afghanistan and getting shot at. So don't tell me you know what I mean. It's just like, she tells the story. She gets pissed. Because people want to relate and like, oh, it'll be okay. Bill came back. It's not the same. So it's hard on the families as a whole. It's especially hard when you don't have that support group of people who are going through the same thing you are. I think that's true of any stressful. Is if you're not going through it yourself, you don't know what it's like.
Your whole career is marked by you coming up with suggestions and strategies to tangibly improve things. If you were to pick one that either the military, the government, or just society in general can do to support military families as they go through that challenge, is there anything that you can think of that would help?
That's tough. Look, I say society does as best they can. And this will go back to my overall recommendation, and you touched on it as well, is become smarter about the military. Be critical of the decisions made by elected officials and uniformed service members. These generals lost a 20-year war to illiterate goat herders. Okay, they are not infallible experts. The fact that you're wearing 3 and 4 stars is an indictment, not an endorsement, because you got to that position by losing wars. So you're a 4-star general who lost wars to the Taliban, to ISIS, to Iran through their proxies. I'm impressed by that. So, one of the things I heavily criticized Trump about, and Biden as well, is putting a 4-star general in charge of the Department of Defense. That's insanity. The whole point of the civilian control of the military is so that the generals aren't the top decision maker. I want the SecDef to have military experience, but not as a 4-star general, not as a 3-star general. And these people need to be controlled by people who haven't lost wars. So Trump made a huge mistake putting Mattis in charge, both on a philosophical and a constitutional level, but also as well as a competence level. Mattis did not do a good job, either as a general officer or as a Secretary of Defense. He cultivated a cult of personality and made himself look really good, but what are his results? And then the same thing with Austin. Austin has no business being a SecDef. And I just wish it was explicit that no retired general will ever be the Secretary of Defense. I think that's a horrible precedent. And so, but if you haven't been in the military, it's hard to criticize those who have.
Yes.
And so do a tour in the Guard. Even a tour in the Guard will give you such a depth of understanding that you can't get just from reading and whatnot. But even if you can't serve and you don't have the experience, there's plenty of books out there. Read them. Become conversant with basic military terminology. Understand Clausewitz and fog of war and culminating point and centers of gravity. These are not concepts that are some sort of mystic voodoo magic that you can only learn by going to Command and General Staff College. It's pretty simple stuff. Sun Tzu, pretty simple stuff, but profound. Have that level of understanding of strategy. Understand the difference between policy and strategy and grand strategy and operations and tactics. Just understand what those things are. And so when something is happening and your gut's like, that seems stupid, you can say, you can understand it's like, oh, so how is this, forwarding our policy as Americans? How does this attack an enemy center of gravity? Is this the best use of our limited resources? Are we following the 9 principles of war? And then you can at least articulate why you're unhappy with something and say, well, you're not in the military. Yeah, but I know this much, and this clearly violates X, and whether you're in uniform or out of uniform, that still doesn't make any sense, and you can articulate a little better. If you're going to be a good citizen, you have to understand warfare. Best way to learn it is in the military, but there's other ways.
It's excellent advice. I agree. I think that's been lacking for a long time. We've outsourced all those decisions to politicians and existing people in the military, and simply put, we didn't have your back.
I don't blame you.
You should. I feel like there probably are a lot of veterans that feel a sense of resentment when they return home, and I think a lot of them.
I'll say for the biggest sense of resentment is the implied sense of pity for a veteran.
Good point.
Thank you for your service. It must have been terrible. Actually, it was awesome. I really had a great time. And thank you for paying the taxes to allow me to do that. Don't pity me.
Yeah.
All right? If your thanks is sincere, like, hey, thanks for rescuing my cat. Hey, no problem. It was my pleasure. Don't pity me as some person who had no options in life. I had plenty of options in life. Could have gone to any college I wanted to. I went to West Point. I joined the military. I stayed in. I chose the infantry. I actively sought that out. If you don't understand a warrior ethos, don't pity it and don't think you're superior because you don't get it.
Would you be able to, pick for you maybe your most memorable combat story, most important for you, and summarize it the best you can? Almost paint a picture using all your senses of what it would be like to be in your shoes at that moment.
I think the biggest thing is you very rarely see your enemy. You're being shot at from some distance away. Smokeless powder. Usually when someone engages you, they're trying to make themselves small. You see a lot of people are critical. I talk about only hits matter. you got to aim. Don't just fire, but screw that. You're just shooting in the general direction and hoping to get his to get his head down a little bit, to have him think about it. Because people say only hits matter. I've never been shot at. I'll tell you, bullets that haven't shot me affected me in a great way and rendered me almost combat ineffective. So, not in my book, but a different day, we were rolling through and made contact, and we were pursuing them. And we were going after this guy who's behind, so the trellises in Afghanistan, they grow a lot of grapes, interestingly enough, a lot of sun, but they have to irrigate them properly. But there's very little wood. So they make mud trellises for the grapevines. And it's one after another, and these things are bulletproof. And fighting through them is just, it's exhausting. And you're just throwing grenades and throwing smoke and shooting, and all your kit going after one 4-foot mud wall after another, getting caught up in the grapevines. So this one guy was just, we were just trying to get him. We finally got him with a 203, one of the grenades, finally got him. And right when that happened, we were moving up to where he was at, two PKMs, two belt-fed machine guns, opened up on a hill about 600, just 600 yards away. And man, just bullets everywhere. One of my guys got hit, one of the Afghans right next to me, and I found a little hill of dirt about that big. And you're seeing it popping up, and probably the top half of my body's covered, but I know they can hit my legs and whatnot. I'm just trying to get small, and dust everywhere, and no one's shooting at this point. And it's just, there's like 4 of us. And the guys hit, and I'm like, well, somebody's got to start shooting back. So get up, get my M4 up on this little berm, and then I start shooting back. And 600 meters. Big fan of the ACOG. It's got the little, it works. 3 rounds, I hit one guy. All right, that's cool. And then engage another dude. And I don't know if I hit, one guy I know I hit, and then the other guy, but then enough of the fire that those guys started getting scared, and they pulled off the hill and stopped shooting at us, and we were able to disengage and everything. And ordinarily, I should have continued the pursuit. And I was mentally smoked. One, I'm looking at, these guys were good 600 meters away and probably 75 to 100 meters altitude. We're already at 7,000 feet. It's late May, I want to say, late May. It's pretty hot. We're in the 90s, 7,000 feet, wearing all my kit. We'd been humping for a while just in this pursuit after we got out of the Humvees. And I just looked at that hill, and the adrenaline had just drained me. I should have kept going, I couldn't. So it took a while to figure out where they were at. When they were shooting, just all of a sudden there's just bullets everywhere. And so there's the physical exhaustion aspect of combat. I think gets understated a little bit. And that's why it goes back to, we talked about how I think stress shoots are so important. The confusion, you mentally talk yourself out of doing what you need to do. You get scared. It's a natural emotion. And I was no less exposed by getting up and actually firing back at the enemy. I was a little more exposed because I was exposed to my upper body from a little mound of dirt, but that mound of dirt wasn't doing me much good. It was just a psychological thing, like, if I can't see them through this little mound of dirt, they can't see me. It's like a 5-year-old hiding under the bed with their legs sticking out. Yeah. I was the same thing. That's tough. It's tough when you're in a really close firefight to stand up and throw a grenade, to expose yourself like that. And you got to be exposed to it. The first time, it's really tough. First time under fire. First time I was shot at was in Bosnia. I was a spaz. And I felt stupid. And it was the combat veterans from Desert Storm were like, hey, sir, you don't want to do that. Come here, sir. I felt so, because also in Bosnia, all I had was an M9. So I got shot at, pulled my M9, I'm looking around. And again, no idea where the fire's coming from. And then I realized I'm being shot at with a rifle. I don't know where the enemy is. I just holster my pistol. And I'm like, I am not a combat multiplier with my trigger pulling here. I need to do some LT shit and actually lead the guys. It worked out fine. And they said the vets from Desert Storm, like, hey, sir, come, let's get behind the tires here. Let's figure out where this is coming from. So I think that was, and I had time to think about it as a small group. After that, I got much more comfortable with constantly moving forward, even under fire, and continuing to move uphill. And because you're always attacking uphill, because I guess God hates me, but it's so hard. And just the mental, after that firefight, I started running more in the FOB. I had to get in better shape. I took out my side plates. I was cutting weight. I was upping my grenade count because I ran out of grenades fast.
Wow.
Made sure I had plenty of water. Cut weight where I could. Didn't carry too much of one thing. Made sure I had enough grenades and ammo and water. That was the critical thing. And just me personally being more physically fit and doing more running and being ready for that. Fatigue makes cowards of us all, according to Patton. There's a lot of truth to it. I think that's one thing. The second biggest thing is 90% of casualties occur when one side quits and runs. Very rarely in a straight up fight are you going to incur a lot of casualties, because each person is trying to stay alive. But what happens is two groups of armed men, and sometimes it's just one armed man against another, is they'll come together and they'll engage each other, and one guy just says, fuck it, I don't want to die. And they break and run, and you shoot them in the back. And throughout history, from the Egyptian era, you read, you read Xenophon, you read Thucydides, you read Livy, Caesar, all throughout history. Alexander, the conquest of Alexander the Great. It's the pursuit. It's the broken enemy running away where the slaughter really happens. So you have to train yourself and your men to be resolute in the face of danger. It's why Frederick the Great was so good, why Napoleon was so good. Is if you can maintain your order and discipline and you don't break and run, then you'll live. But if you break and run, Kipling talked about that, the young British soldier, it's ruined to run from a fight. And so the knowledge that it's in the pursuit where the casualties really occur. It's not in the straight up fight. It's not two guys coming up and slinging lead and one guy gets the hit and the other guy goes down fighting. That happens. But that's not where the bulk of the casualties come from in traditional infantry combat. Now, IEDs and all that is a different creature, but I think that might come as a surprise to a lot of people.
It does to me. But I suppose it does make sense. Anything else about combat that you think the ordinary person should know?
It's funny as hell.
How so?
You do stupid stuff when you're scared. You'll dive behind whatever cover's there. They pooped in there. Especially with untrained people, professionals are predictable, but amateurs are hilarious. And I was dealing with the Afghan police. These guys maybe had a week of training. Sometimes they had none. And this one guy just grabs his PCAM and he's just walking and just spraying bullets, and his friends are in front of him and they're diving for cover. They're terrified. Just shooting RPGs just to shoot it. RPGs are really loud on both ends, by the way. And so we got ambushed one time, and I was on foot, and Rob Apel, my sergeant major, was up on the turret in my Humvee, 50 cal, and he let loose a belt of 50 right above my head. I was maybe a foot in front and it's probably 2 feet above my head. It dropped me. It was so loud, it just dropped me, and everyone thought I got shot. And I just crawled behind the Humvee and that's probably where the bulk of my tinnitus came from, was from Rob shooting that damn 50 cal right over my head. Didn't hit a damn thing either. It's just, stuff like, and everyone's kind of laughing. It's like, sure, you okay? I'm like, oh, the 50, so loud. So just, I don't know. Every emotion that human beings can experience will be experienced in combat, and it's multiplied. It is intense at a level that only fear of your life can bring. There's just nothing like it.
Can you think of, maybe not, but your funniest combat or military memory? Doesn't have to be from combat, but.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you that dude with the PCAM just walking forward, just happier than shit that he finally got to shoot his gun with no clue where those bullets were going, and just watching the people to his front dive in abject terror, not from the enemy, but from their own idiot behind them. I'll never forget that. I still laugh about it. It was hilarious. It's hilarious in that he didn't kill anyone. If he had shot someone, it would have been tragic.
Good. That was my next
question.
But
he didn't shoot anyone. Certainly didn't shoot the enemy, and didn't shoot his friends. And he just dropped that belt of 100 rounds, turned around, got back in the truck, and sat down with a big old grin on his face. He was just so happy.
Mission accomplished.
But that's it. I just wanted to shoot my 100 rounds. And that's all he wanted in life. And it's just, I was too stunned to even stop him or correct him. I was like, what is this guy doing? And everyone in there, we were just laughing. One time we were going through this town, and we were in pursuit, and a branch grabbed the 240 off of the turret. So we had primary and secondary on our turrets and our Humvees. So I think we were rolling with a Mark 19, and we had a 240 off to the side. 240 got grabbed by a branch. We were an armored Humvee, and so it's just, there's three of us: driver, me, and gunner. So I get out, and this is in a village, so pretty tight confines. And I grab the 240, and then I get lit up. And I throw the 240 in the back of the Humvee and dive in and shut the door, and we start hauling ass, and he's ripping Mark 19s off. He's like, where were they? I was like, I don't know. And it was just kind of funny, because I just like dove on him, like, get out of here, I'm being shot at. And again, I don't know where he is. So he knows where I'm at. I don't know where he's at. I just want to get out of that whole situation. I don't know, it's always funny until somebody gets killed. Then it's not so funny.
So that last story highlights something I think is a common misconception. You were rolling with a fairly small group of individuals, not counting your Afghan counterparts.
So we would generally roll with 9 to 12 Americans, including Terps, and 20 to 30 Afghan police. And we would go against teams of 5 to 30 Taliban. So
that's a relatively fair fight.
Yeah,
they have a plan.
So our advantages were, we had armor, huge advantage. We had no artillery, we had no mortars, we had no air support, but we had the Blue Force tracker. We had good situational awareness. Taliban's advantage is we were always shooting on their terrain. We were always going to them. They never came at us, because we would have jacked them up. So they had home field advantage. We had armor and better weaponry and better logistics. They would run out of ammo. We never ran out of ammo, because we were never more than a couple clicks away from our trucks, and we rolled with a lot of ammo. I think our training and our communications were the decisive advantages. They had good mobility because of the motorcycles. They actually moved better than we did. So if we didn't have if our scheme of maneuver wasn't solid, and that's what happened 90% of the time. They just get on the motorcycles and take off. It was very rare that we were able to catch them. I'd say 80% of the engagements, they'd either ambush us or they'd let off an IED and they'd take off, and we never caught them. But 20% of the time we caught them, we made them pay.
What percentage of the time that you're going outside of your base on a mission or a patrol are you actually encountering IEDs? In the book,
We
Pretty
rolled, I'd say we rolled 5 days a week,
Okay.
give or take. I would say my element would hit an IED once every 2 weeks. To various effects. My truck got hit, didn't do shit to the truck. It was poorly placed. They dug it too deep and it just kind of bounced me. We were all fine. Yeah, I mean, every KIA of the police that I was there for all died from IEDs. In my greater unit, about 400 American advisors, every KIA was an IED. We didn't lose a single person to direct fire. And they're catastrophic, man. There's one dude, he'd been back from leave for about a week, and he was IRR. He had done his tour, West Point graduate, Bubba Bunting, and he got back, and they lost the whole crew, all 5 people in the Humvee, IED. And I said he'd been back a week from mid-tour leave. Got his wife pregnant while he's gone, so.
Wow. Once every 2 weeks to the average person who's not in the military, that's pretty frequent.
No, it was.
Yeah, what does that do to your mental state when you're out there fighting?
It makes you
those conditions?
fatalistic. You have to accept I could die today. Did you ever watch Band of Brothers?
Oh, I loved it.
All right. Best scene in the whole movie is when Spears is talking to a guy. So, what was his name? I can't remember the character's name. It's like, you know why you hid in that ditch, whatever your name is? The guy answers because he was scared. He's like, scared? We're all scared. Now your problem is you still think you can live. You just got to acknowledge you're already dead. Then you can function the way a soldier needs to. Very profound. It's very true. If you can't accept the possibility of your death, you can't function in combat. And that happened to a lot of people. That was one of the reasons I had to take over the thing. That guys lose their nerve. They can't take the stress of exposing themselves to combat anymore, and they shrink into their shell. And you don't have to roll. You know, you can say, especially as a commander, it's like, I'm not rolling. I'm not putting my guys out there. It's not worth it. And in retrospect, they're freaking right. What Americans who died in Afghanistan died for a purpose that in the end served American foreign policy, American interest? None, zero. The correct, intelligent decision is to have never left the wire and defended yourself and let whatever happen happen because it's not my problem. And that goes back into policy and whatnot. And I love combat. I'm a competitive guy. I wanted to be in combat. I was surrounded by soldiers who wanted to be in combat. My guys got pissed when we weren't rolling. And that happened towards the end when we developed some TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures, where we were rocking them. We were kicking their ass. We figured out how to nullify or at least minimize their maneuver advantage they had, their mobility advantage. And so their tactics changed. And they weren't even going to do a stand-up fight. Everything was IEDs. And these guys are like, sir, we need to get on the wire. We need to get back in the fight. I'm like, there's no fight to get back into. The enemy has changed because we were kicking their ass too well. All we'll do is drive around and get blown up. We will never get into another direct fire engagement with them. They've countered our tactics. And unless I have helicopters or something, and I'm never going to get them, we're never going to get them. We're guardsmen. We're guardsmen supporting the Afghan police. We'll never get the assets we require to be successful. We're stuck, dude. And it drove them nuts. So we did other stuff. You know, we focused more on training the police. We supported the elections. We worked with the Department of Justice and their jails, and we did what we could. But my guys were frustrated. These were guys who did MMA. They were football players. They were aggressive. They wanted to be in the fight just as much as I did. And they're great soldiers. Pains in the ass sometimes. Because you're a guardsman. What am I going to threaten them with? They're not careerists. They're just here for the juice. So I might have gotten off a little bit on that. All right, so we talk about Band of Brothers. But I mean, that goes back to Xenophon and the Athabassus, the expedition of Cyrus with the 10,000. Xenophon wrote about that. 400 BC, 500 BC, might have been 600. I can't remember. I remember reading Xenophon. He said the guys who fought the best were the ones who already accepted they were dead men walking, and so they just fought with abandon. And they were the ones who were the most successful and more likely to live, because they didn't fight with fear. They fought with aggression and initiative and offensive mindset, and they were the ones who always took it to the enemy. So you just have to acknowledge that you could die today, and today's a good day to die.
So you mentioned as a soldier, you came to fight.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. We need people like that. You're also very smart. When did you realize that maybe it isn't a good idea to go outside the wire? What I'm trying to get at there is understanding the strategy and the results and what victory, but at what cost. When did you kind of realize that? Was it after you served? Or was it during?
I made that as far as what is it worth to go out the wire?
Sure.
Not on the tactical level, but on the policy, strategic level.
Exactly.
And probably 2016, 2015.
Okay.
So a good 5 years later.
Okay.
I still thought stupidly that as a nation we would adjust and come up with a strategy that would reflect acknowledging the reality on the ground. And by 2015, after I'd published dozens of articles, my book hadn't been published yet, but it's good article, selfishly, arrogantly, good strategic analysis, and no one cared. And by 2015, 2016, I realized that no one cares about winning this war. This is just about spending money and getting themselves personally promoted, and they couldn't care less. General officers who looked at their men as nothing more than rungs on their ladder of success to be climbed on and abandoned as soon as they got to the next level. And this was in my tour in DC, mm-hmm. and seeing these things up front. I'm like, I didn't realize how bad it was, how corrupt the bureaucracy was, how self-serving, and how callous it was to the sufferings of the men who were doing the fighting. They just didn't care.
How does that happen, that you have so many people in leadership and in government that they have such a disconnect from what's going on the ground to the point where it seems to me almost two different worlds?
Well, it is. Money, power, bureaucracy, the civilians. Like if a general comes in and wants to get something done and the civilians, the career bureaucrats in the Pentagon and DC as a whole don't like it, they'll just ignore him until he goes away. Because they'll always be there. Generals come and go, the bureaucrats stay forever. And the bureaucracy just gets bigger and bigger. And every time the bureaucracy fails, it's an excuse for the bureaucracy to become even bigger. They're rewarded for failing. And I don't think DC can be fixed.
Okay.
They'll never give up what they have gathered for themselves as far as the accumulation of power.
So that was my next question, is you're a man with a lot of solutions. Do you have a solution to this?
When the dollar collapses, when that happens, I don't know, then DC maintains its power by bribing the states with deficit dollars. Like, we'll keep giving you money, Social Security, welfare, Section 8, roads, so that you can have your own little petty corruption at the state and local levels. When the dollar stops buying food, then DC gets ignored. But there'll be a lot of pain when that happens. But as long as the federal government can buy off people with fake dollars, they'll maintain their power. We haven't suffered enough yet.
Wow. This is almost the exact opposite perspective that you had in Afghanistan, where you believed in the mission, you thought it could change, and even after you were done with your deployment, you kept fighting. If you were to take that same approach to the position that we find ourselves in today, what would you do?
So I think you see it in California, you see it in Texas, is the states need to ignore the federal government. And the states need to, but it all comes down to currency, because money's power. So, as long as the feds have this power, as long as the feds can steal money from the states through income tax with no way to stop it. The federal government can punish individual civilians, and the states can't really protect them. The states have to develop mechanisms to protect their individual citizens from the encroachment of ill-used power by the federal government. There's not a lot of good ways to do that. There are some, but like California, like sanctuary cities. I disagree with them because immigration is clearly a federal government purview. But you see Texas, like, we're sealing the border. No, you're not. Yes, we are. And the more, in any instance, like the legalization of marijuana at the state level, I agreed with, because I don't think drug bans are within the purview of the federal government. Same reason I agreed with the recent Supreme Court decision on abortion. I don't think it's a federal government issue. Federal government has made a lot of things a federal government issue that it shouldn't be. The states need to claw back their power at every turn. But the federal government always has that carrot of federal funds to bribe their way into getting the states to acquiesce. When they can no longer bribe the states, that'll be an interesting decision. So part of the reason I'm part of the Tennessee State Guard, a well-regulated militia being necessary security. The idea of a bunch of militias without any sort of civilian control, back to civilian control of the military, I don't like that. I don't like warlords and bands of things of that nature. I think every state should have a well-regulated militia. And I think governors should go out and encourage people to join and arm themselves and train with their friends and neighbors. And if the governor needs to call them up, Texas has thousands of Texas state guardsmen, militiamen, and many of them are on the border doing that mission. I think that's a great model. I know Florida recently stood theirs up. About 20 states have state guards, maybe 5 to 10 of them are of any value whatsoever. It's a mixed bag. But the states just need to claw back their power at every turn in every way and ignore the federal government as best they can. That's my opinion.
I think it's a good one. It's interesting. We have a nation with an immense population and fairly well-defined and organized states.
By design, the United States of America, and as originally written, United was not capitalized.
Didn't know that.
It was an adjective.
Being in the military and fighting in a war, putting it all on the line for our country, gives veterans like yourself an amazing perspective to critique life and our own government here today. I just think it gives you perspective that no one else will have. That's why I value your opinion and other veterans when it comes to things that aren't war.
Combat gives you a perspective and that's why I encourage people to join, to volunteer for the combat arms. You will have, if you live, an appreciation for the lowest levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You cannot, until you've been hungry, you can't appreciate food. Until you've been cold, you can't appreciate warmth. Until you've been really wet, you can't appreciate being dry. Until your life has been threatened directly and immediately, you can't appreciate safety.
You had mentioned in the book and in conversation, it's difficult for you to get air support. And it seems overall like you didn't have a very good level of support for what you were doing at all.
Agreed.
Why is that? How would you fix that? You've written a lot of articles about this as well, where the government needs to trust, or the military needs to trust field officers, leaders in the field. What would you do to fix that problem? Because certainly we don't want to repeat the same mistakes in the next war.
So, money, power. The money needs to belong to the combatant commanders and not to the services. So the Air Force, the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, they buy what they want to buy with zero input whatsoever from the combatant commanders. So if CENTCOM wants a certain asset and no one feels like buying it, CENTCOM doesn't get that asset. PACOM wants an asset and none of the services want to buy it, PACOM doesn't get that asset because PACOM doesn't have the money, the services do. And the services have no warfighting function whatsoever. The only fight they care about is getting as much money as possible from the taxpayers and buying whatever they want to buy so that they can have nice retirement jobs with the various defense contractors when they're done stealing as much money from the taxpayers. And if we lose wars to 20-year-long wars to illiterate goat herders, that's not their problem. Their problem is how to maximize their post-retirement careers. And so the money needs to belong to the combatant commanders, and the services need to beg the combatant commanders for money and basically buy what they're told to buy by the actual warfighters. So I would get rid of the service secretaries altogether. They're an expensive, worthless, and obviously failed anachronism. And I would have basically 2 service secretaries, mission secretaries, one for expeditionary warfare, one for strategic warfare. And the services would bid their services to provide the needs of the warfighters. So if you need an anti-shipping capability in the Pacific, the Army could come up, hey, we have shore-based anti-ship cruise missiles. Or we're gonna put them on our HIMARS, or we're gonna put them in Connexes, or we're gonna put them on the back of our MLRS rigs, and this missile can do X and Y and have this range and whatever. And Navy say, well, we're gonna do this, and the Air Force will say, well, we have F-35s. And the combatant commander, the problem, of course, being that all the combatant commanders now belong to their sisters. They were all promoted based upon their fealty to their basic branch. So we also need a joint corps of officers who have no affiliation whatsoever from the branch that they originally came from. Another article I wrote about talking about a joint corps.
Yep.
You would have to have a truly joint officer whose promotions are entirely based upon their performance in the joint world, not on their services. But now you have 4-star generals who are combatant commanders who commanded Army corps. They're not joint officers. They're Army Corps commanders who got a 4th star to be a combatant commander, but their entire mindset, their fealty is to their basic branch. One of my classmates at War College, 3-star general now, when asked to describe himself, he said, look, I'm a company man. His dad was an Army, career Army guy. He's a career Army. He just does what the Army wants him to do. And he's 3-star general. That's how far it'll take you. If you're actually worried about fighting the mission and willing to give up your own services equities for the betterment of the nation, well, you get out at lieutenant colonel. If you say so.
How would you fix that problem? So you've got the solution, what you need to do.
It would require
how do we get there?
Require legislation. It would require something like the NSA 1947, the Goldwater Nichols 1986. It would require legislation at that level.
Is anyone advocating that other than you?
No. Now, there was a 2009 paper that was written, I haven't read it yet, I'm aware of it, that did talk about the funding not belonging to the combatant commanders is a critical gap that needs to be addressed. I've not read the paper to see if they say how to address that gap.
Okay.
But I got to read that paper. So that's my next book. That book's been on the back burner for a long time. And my oldest son, who's writing his own book, said, Dad, you need to write that other book. So I'll write mine, you write yours, and we'll see how it goes. So I've started doing the preliminary research, the hard work. I've had the idea for years, but I should be able to get it published through the publisher of my previous book because it'll be an academic work. And I don't think it'll go anywhere because you'd be taking away the equities of people who control hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars. I'm not going to win that fight.
Maybe not alone. What would you need from the country? What do you need from Americans?
I would need a presidential candidate who is not vested in the status quo to look at that and go, this is what we're doing. I will not sign a Defense Appropriations Act unless these reforms are integrated into it.
Okay.
The next appropriations will be a National Security Act, and it will incorporate the dissolution of the SEC Army, SEC AF, SEC Navy, the creation of the mission secretaries, and this complete restructuring along the lines of the 1947 and 1986 National Security Acts.
So you then need America to demand that of a presidential candidate, have them be willing to do it.
Yes.
That I thought about this before we met. One of my personal heroes is Milton Friedman. And I feel like you're almost the military's version of Milton Friedman, whispering in the potential to whisper into the president's ear to make major policy changes.
I'm a huge fan of Milton Friedman. I disagree with him on only one point. And the disagreement is philosophical, not on efficacy. Milton Friedman created the idea of the automatic withdrawal of income tax.
Yeah, you got to say I don't like that one either.
I'm not a fan of that one,
Yeah.
but it worked.
Yeah.
So to Milton Friedman's credit, it did what he wanted it to do, but the horrific nature of it is, I mean, I want everyone to write a check every April for every penny they owe and feel that pain every flipping time.
What can Americans do now to support you in your mission to write that book?
Whoa. Well, I can write the book, period.
Okay.
I'll do the research. I got to get a job so I make some money. This will be a side hustle. If any university wants to sponsor me on a grant for a year to write this full time, be more than happy to have that grant so I can actually focus on the work. But it'll just take longer to do it.
Okay.
And just don't trust the experts, because they're not. They've failed. They have failed. They failed the country. They have failed the missions given to them. They are not experts in anything but protecting their own equities and not the needs of the nation.
Well, hopefully when the rest of the country sees this interview, you'll get the support and the money that you need to do it.
I hope so. That'd be nice.
I don't think there's a lot of individuals with your broad range of knowledge and skills. So your military career may have formally ended, but I certainly hope that your influence has not.
I think as a career soldier, that's the whole reason you see a lot of old generals still doing it. It's your profession, it's what you know. But physically, there's not a lot for an old soldier to do other than move his lips.
Oh, we need you to do it. And your pen or your keys.
My keys.
One of the things that really, so I've watched a lot of your interviews. I think everything that I could find on you, your papers, your interviews, watched and read them all, at least skimmed something. One of the things that really impressed me or just seemed particularly unique was you're a soldier, you came to fight. You did a good job, from what it sounds like, destroying Taliban in a situation that was difficult to do. But you also had a lot of love for the actual people that live in Afghanistan.
There are aspects of Taliban, of Pashtun society, and then the Taliban is primarily a Pashtun movement. That's admirable. They're honest in a way that you don't get in the Arab world. Pashtun Wali is, you're welcoming to guests. Why do we go to Afghanistan? Because Osama bin Laden was there. Osama bin Laden, from 2002 until when we killed him in 2013, was in Pakistan. Why didn't we invade Pakistan? What were we doing there? What was the point? If I was an Afghan, I would hope I would have been a Taliban. Not necessarily because I believe in everything that the Taliban do. I'm not a fundamentalist Muslim, but at a base level, they defended their country from an invader. And they took horrific casualties. We probably killed 100 Taliban for every American. It takes a lot of balls. You'd see the FLIR footage. These guys would grab their AK, going out Wolverine style, shooting an Apache, and get stitched up by a 30 Mike or eat a Hellfire. How do you not respect that on a basic level, not even as a soldier, but as a human being? That bravery to pick up arms against the most technologically advanced and fearsome military force in history and win? The kids everywhere, they're universal. We had 3 kids who cleaned our camp when I was in Kandahar City. And they took all the trash and they'd take it home with them every day. And then they would sift through the trash, what they could keep, what they could sell. And one time we gave them a volleyball. And they were just, God, they were so happy. They were just so happy we gave them a volleyball. And these kids, they'd show up at 6 o'clock in the morning, clean until 6 o'clock at night, not eat a thing the whole time, and go home. And they're probably making more money than their parents were, smiling all the time, saying, waving, desperately trying to learn a word or two or English so they can become a Terp and make better money. And how do you not love that? people who work hard, who smile, try to take care of their family, go out with a shovel and work in a field all day, or 8-year-old kid goat herding by himself, 50 goats out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a battlefield, just herding his goats. So I don't know, anyone who can live simply and honorably and take care of their family, I admire that. And again, I admire the Taliban for having the bravery to stand up and fight. Now, yeah, the IED sucked. Is it a cowardly tactic? No, it's an intelligent tactic. What are you supposed to do? Just die? Just stand up and die? Anyways, no Afghans attacked us on 9/11.
Yeah.
We went to their country, 20 years, waged war, killed people because Osama bin Laden was there. And then Osama bin Laden left, went to Pakistan. We didn't do shit to Pakistan. So, I don't know.
One of the, and it might be right, you can tell me your opinion, one of the justifications, or maybe if we look on the positive side of our involvement in Afghanistan, is, well, we didn't have any more terrorist attacks on America.
We did. We just didn't have them on that scale. We had a lot of terrorist attacks. We had terrorist attacks at Fort Hood, San Bernardino.
True.
We had terrorist attacks in Boston. We had terrorist attacks in Spain. We had terrorist attacks in France, England. Tear up Texas, just down the road from here, right?
Yeah.
Now, granted, they weren't successful. We had the recruiting stations getting shot up.
Yeah.
We've had lots of terrorist attacks since then.
Fair enough.
But did we not have another 9/11 because we went to Afghanistan, or we not have another 9/11 because we started looking for terrorists and we hardened the cockpits? We stopped being stupid about inviting in known terrorists and teaching them how to fly airplanes but not how to land them.
So it may have been more of a defensive victory versus an offensive one.
Again, if killing Afghans prevented 9/11, well, it wasn't Afghans who attacked us on 9/11. It wasn't Iraqis either. It was Saudis and Egyptians. Those were the hijackers.
Yeah. So that question was on the road to a different one. That was I guess, how we would justify it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having had a very long war in Afghanistan that cost Afghans dearly, we'd be remiss to say that there weren't hostilities, tensions, damage between the relationship between us as Americans, individuals, and that of Afghan citizens, I would imagine.
No.
Not, okay.
I'll tell you why. Afghans, Pashtuns particularly, they're a warrior society. Hey, there was a war. We fought. Some of us died, some of us lived, and we won. Just the way it is. They'll find a new war. They'll find a new enemy. Soviets didn't have a bunch of Afghan-related terrorist attacks. And now, granted, they didn't import a bunch of Afghans the way we did. But I think if there's any attacks against the United States by Afghans, it'll be an Islamic-based attack, not a revenge for the war in Afghanistan-based attack.
I guess, what, if any, message would you, as a soldier and a citizen of this country, have for Afghans that are living there today? Not the Taliban, but anything that you'd like to say to them or let them know about Americans here? Sorry.
I'm a soldier. I go where, I fight where I'm told, and I win where I fight. In the words of Patton III, his son in Vietnam. Look, man, I just do what I'm told. You just do what you're told. I'm sorry what we did to your country. I hope you guys have a better life.
It seems like they'd be pretty accepting of that message. Not that you owe anyone an apology.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I killed a lot of them, and my men did. And some of them may have been innocent. We went out of our way to not kill the innocent, and we did everything we possibly could to avoid harming innocents, to the point of our own personal, at the risk of our own lives, at the point of letting known terrorists get away. But I'm sorry if I didn't mean to.
I just wanted to ask, because is it from a civilian point of view, which I am, we imagine we've heard the message every time we drop a bomb and it hits somebody that wasn't supposed to be hit. we've created another terrorist. So it's almost as when we're destroying who we view as our enemy, we're creating more. And I always wondered what guys on the ground thought about that, and if there was anything that we could do to mend our strained relationship, we'll say, with the Afghan people.
I'll be honest about our motivation for going there. Pashtuns respect honesty, and I don't think we were honest with them from the get-go. So, but also, life is cheap there, and so in my book, the day that happened, 2 police officers died in an IED strike. I went back to the general. I felt really bad. 2 of his men were dead. He's like, don't worry about it. People die, it's war. Good job today. You killed more than they did. Life's cheap. And they're comfortable with death in a way that Westerners and Americans in particular just can't fathom. And they understand, and their profound faith in Islam gives them a comfort with death. Islam is a faith, if you die in combat, you get 70, it's kind of a win, right? And even if you're a good Muslim and you die, you go to paradise. So they died. They were going to. They just died sooner than they would have otherwise. Don't worry about it. I mean, seriously, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Took me a while to wrap my head around that.
I suppose our country probably never wrapped their head around it if we're trying to guarantee elections.
I think our COVID response shows how utterly terrified we are of even the thought of death.
Yeah.
We can't fathom the idea of risking our lives for anything. Makes us a small and petty people.
Why is that? I agree with you. Why is it that we're so afraid of death?
Well, one, we become increasingly secular. Religion brings a comfort to the unknown. And granted, it's blind faith, but if you truly believe in heaven, then there's less to fear. Well, we may die. And just the nature of life is such that we don't have to be exposed to it. Women don't die in childbirth anymore in the United States, by and large. I mean, I'm sure it does happen, but it's quite common. We don't die of horrible diseases. Men die in the workplace, but not like they used to. We've vanquished unnatural deaths almost entirely in this country. We freak out about 12,000 homicides a year, which I'm not saying is a good thing, but we have 3 times as many suicides every year. And workplace deaths, if you look at what we used to have in the workplace, it was horrific. Modern civilization has made death something that just doesn't happen regularly, so we can't become comfortable with it. We don't have the religious faith that allows us to accept it with aplomb, and we don't have the experience with it that would force us to deal with it.
So an increasingly secular society, you think, is the root cause of that?
No, I think it's far more the fact that we're not exposed to death,
Okay.
whether in a secular or
Understood.
in a religious aspect. But I think the secular aspect we're not exposed to death, first and foremost.
Sure.
And second, we're not comfortable with the idea of death.
Okay.
If we were exposed to it, we'd become comfortable with it, whether through faith or otherwise. And maybe the loss of faith is being driven by the loss of exposure to death. That if we were exposed to death more regularly and tragically, when it happens at a young age, we would be forced to develop the mechanism that mankind has historically developed, which is faith.
Yeah.
So there may be a chicken and an egg thing there going on.
Yeah, I think so. Suffering definitely brings a lot of people closer or even to God in the first place. So that makes sense. All right, then to kind of circle back and put kind of a cap on your book that you'd already written and your deployment. Again, you had a lot of trouble getting the resources that you needed, specifically helicopters. When I read your account of what you had to go through to engineer, design, plan such a mission and then have it go off, first off, you're punching way above, at least from my perspective, you're punching way above your pay grade or rank. I couldn't imagine that someone in your position from the National Guard would be able to deploy those resources. I was impressed, put it that way.
Well, I had a lot of help. Greg Kanata, he was an active duty infantry officer who was the liaison with the Romanians, who technically the Romanians were the battle space owners for that area, but they never went off the highway. Without Greg, I wouldn't have gotten the UAV, I wouldn't have gotten the Apaches. The fact that one of my guys I swam with at West Point was the XO of the aviation battalion, I'm not sure I wouldn't have got, if I hadn't gone in and saw him and said, oh man, hey, this is what I need, and he got me with the battalion commander, I was able to work with her, and she's like, all right, but you're gonna have to do this. There's a lot of luck involved in that.
Or fate.
What have you. Yeah. At the end of the day, I killed a bunch of guys. Didn't change anything in the end, did it?
Oh, yeah. That wasn't yours to decide, I suppose.
No, I mean, I did my job, but
you did exactly what you're supposed to.
I suppose. But I did get my ass chewed for it because I made the Afghan army look bad.
I have a feeling you get your ass chewed based on a lot of things that you do.
You've been talking to my wife.
Every time I read one of your papers, just in the title, I could immediately see someone in a position of authority who owns that subject being extremely irritated.
Yeah. Didn't help my career.
Yeah.
When they say they want creative thinkers and critical thinkers, they're lying.
Yeah. Anything else that you'd like to say about your tour in Afghanistan, about the book, that operation that you engineered? Before we move on,
there's nothing special, man. Anyone who crawls out of that wire is a hero.
I agree. Anything that you want to talk about getting out of the military, that transition, maybe even returning home from combat? You don't have to talk about any of it, but if you think there's anything of value there, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, one, if I hadn't been married, if I didn't have, I never would have left. I would have stayed there. And that's why you get these guys who are contractors and the guard bums. You get guys who go from state to state to state just so they could keep deploying and keep going. Wow. It's addicting. There's nothing like it. And then you got to come off of that. And you joked about that earlier. PTSD is just knowing you'll never be awesome again. There's nothing like it, and you'll miss it. And it's kind of unfair to your family, because for them there's nothing awesome about their dad or their husband being gone. It's just fear for them. So the idea that I enjoyed what I was doing doesn't translate to them, and it sounds selfish and unfair, and it is. And so, anyways, I think for me that was the toughest part. Is there's nothing good for the families when dad's gone, and so for me, the deployments are far harder on the families than they are on the servicemen.
The war that we fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, and just the greater global war on terror, is a lot different from what we're seeing in Ukraine with Russia, and likely a lot different than whatever the next war will be one day. What differences do you think our military needs to be prepared for, and our citizens need to be prepared for whatever that next conflict is?
Well, at the tactical level, drones are a game changer. Those things scare the shit out of me. Not the big, Reaper type drones, but these little suicide kamikaze drones. Man, they scare the crap out of me. And back to my problem is, I have zero confidence that the individual services give a shit about developing effective countermeasures.
Really?
Because the countermeasures are not going to be that expensive. The only thing the services care about is how much money they can rape for the taxpayers, give to their future employers in at Raytheon and at Boeing, Lockheed Martin, F-35s and Raider bombers and all that other shit. That's where the big ticket. That's what they care about. If nothing else has been made very, very clear, if an infantryman dies, no one really gives a shit. If a plane crashes, that's the most horrific, terrible thing that has ever happened in the history of warfare. And we as Americans can never tolerate a single aircraft ever crashing for any reason. But we don't care if infantrymen die. I watched that for 20 years. So bunch of infantrymen are getting killed by mini drones. No one in the Secretary of the Army, Secretary of the Air Force, Secretary of the Navy gives a shit. And as a father of 2 infantrymen and a retired infantryman myself, it kind of pisses me off.
Yeah, it should. We just had people killed by a drone.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
So I suppose your proof is in the pudding, unfortunately.
Isn't it just? Now, if that drone had taken out an aircraft on the ramp, the whole world would have come to him. Imagine that thing took out an F-35 or an F-22 or something important, not just 3 soldiers.
Wow. So drones scare you.
Hell yeah, it's game changer.
Is there anything else that we're really missing the boat
I
on?
hate the term game changer, but drones are a game changer.
Yeah.
I think what you're seeing in Ukraine is the difference between attrition, positional-based warfare versus maneuver-based warfare. Maneuvers come to a complete stop because in some combat, land matters. In some combat, it does not. In Israel, land matters. In Afghanistan, land didn't matter. So, when you can't retreat, when you have to hold the land, that makes you a target. And understand the difference between land-based attritional warfare and maneuver-based warfare.
Okay.
Because once you stop moving, well, I hope you got good shovels, which is why you see them going into the trench warfare and things like that.
Yep.
And artillery duels. And you run out of artillery ammunition fast. And all those things that you thought you wouldn't need, like artillery, like DPICMs, suddenly you need them again. Landmines for area denial. We don't use landmines anymore. Well, why not? Well, the international non-warfighting world gives up capabilities they never use, and then we just sign up for it because the State Department wants to make friends with dictators.
Yeah, that never made any sense to me.
Well, it'll make sense if you start looking at it from the guise of the acquisition of power, the spending of money, and the desire to find very expensive solutions to whatever problem. Money makes you stupid, and stupid is expensive.
I've heard you say that before. It's an excellent quote. Is that yours?
That is mine.
It's a good one.
Thank you.
I think it's one that we really need to hear and learn too.
And it sums up our 20 years in Afghanistan. Whatever our problem was, we would find the most expensive solution. And when you think you can buy your way out of every problem instead of think your way out of every problem, you lose war to illiterate goat herders who don't have any money, but they have creativity and they have intelligence and bravery. And that's why we lost, and that's why they won.
I don't know how to fit it in naturally to conversation, so I'm just going to say it. I think you may have gotten this quote from somewhere else, but I hadn't heard it before you. It was about your philosophy of winning over the people versus striking fear into them. Do you remember what quote I'm talking about?
Let them hate so long as they fear.
Yeah. Where'd that come from?
Oh, it's a Latin saying. Tuant. I used to know how to say it in Latin. Wasn't Vegetius? I forget who said it for a second. Look it up. But no, it's a Roman phrase.
As far as I'm concerned, you said it.
Yeah. Well, I did say it, but I wasn't the first to say it. Oh, shoot. I don't have my phone on me. I'll look it up later. But no, it's a Roman saying. Let them hate so long as they fear.
So I think when you had mentioned that, you were talking about the war in a context of big army moving in versus keeping it a special operations war, smaller scale. But I loved the quote, so I wanted to at least ask you about it because it makes a lot of sense.
What's the essence of deterrence? Let them fear, so long as they fear. Iran has no fear of us whatsoever. So they'll kill 3 American soldiers with impunity and keep doing it because they have zero fear of what we'll do to them. We have no deterrence.
I'm really testing your, I guess, geopolitical strategy here, but what would you do in that case to Iran?
I would monkey stomp all their oil producing capabilities.
When you say monkey stomp, what specifically? If you had complete authority, what would you do?
Well, are you aware of Praying Mantis in the 80s?
I'm not.
Okay, Praying Mantis is, there's Praying Mantis 1 and 2. It's when we went out and we destroyed their offshore oil rigs. We destroyed their pumping capabilities to oil tankers and things like that. And that was in response to Iranian provocations, and for good reason. Iran would not be able to export a single drop of oil. And that's that. And if you keep doing it, well, then you're going to start losing things in Tehran. You're going to start things that matter to the IRGC.
And you think we've got the capability
to
do that rapidly?
Jesus, do we have the capability? What do you think we spend $500 billion a year on? We have all the capability in the world. What we lack is the will. So we're a paper tiger made out of the most exquisitely expensive paper in the world. We have all these capabilities and we just don't use them.
Why don't we use it in this case?
Because the primary foreign policy advisor to Joe Biden is Valerie Jarrett, who's an Iranian.
What type of career advice do you have just for people looking at joining the military?
Don't make it a career.
Okay. Can you explain that?
Serve. Learn the use of arms in an organized manner, and then get out and live your life. We need citizen soldiers. There's zero evidence that the professional army is any good. We just lost a 20-year war to illiterate goat herders. The great professional army and all these professionals and all these greatly trained NCOs and officers lost to goat herders. So the superiority of the all-professional army, the all-volunteer force, is at least open to question. I think we presume that the professional army is superior to a citizen soldier one. And I think that presumption is absolutely wrong. I think a military is most successful when the people are united behind the effort, not when they're separated from the effort. The professional military separates the citizens of the country from those who fight it. That's caustic and I think ultimately fatal in the end, as I think the Roman example and the Grecian example would show. Thomas Jefferson, every citizen a soldier. So it was with the Greeks and Romans, so it should be with us. I think every man should be an active part of the militia. By federal law, they're all part of the inactive militia from 17 to 55. I think every man is enrolled automatically in the inactive militia, but you need to be active, you need to be trained, you need to be fit, equipped, and capable of defending your communities and your country. And if we took the defense of a nation as a civic duty, not as a noble obligation of an anointed few, we're developing a warrior caste that is horrible and against everything this country is founded upon. I think every state should have a robust, well-funded at the state level militia, not the National Guard, a militia. You don't have to do that much training. Get together once a month. Everybody in the community, every guy 17 to 40 gets together. They go hang out for a day. They do some basic marksmanship training. They learn how to do a map reading and they learn how to put on a bandage. Okay, but at least you know your neighbors. At least you're developing a sense of community. At least you're giving the opportunity for young people to learn leadership and for older people to exhibit leadership. And that's what made this country, and if you read de Tocqueville, it's what made it work. The militia wasn't a failure. Bad militias are a failure. So make it good. So right now that doesn't exist. So I would encourage people to join the National Guard, maybe active duty. Join, serve, get out, and do something constructive with your life. I would make the professional ranks much, 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 much smaller. We have way too many officers and NCOs with nothing to do, and no one who has served will ever question that reality. But we have to find places for all these people because we say that a professional military is the best thing ever. Well, then why do we lose?
Good point. Any other advice for people looking to join?
Well, if you're looking to join, don't go to the doctor. Don't admit to allergies. Or find non-medical ways to treat what's bothering you. Be healthy, eat healthily, work out, move chairs at awkward times in the middle of interviews, things like that. Stay fit, and live an outdoor healthy lifestyle, be comfortable in sports, be comfortable hunting, be comfortable camping, be comfortable in being uncomfortable. And that's the essence of soldiering. And if you can do that, then you'll enlist and you'll be just fine. You'll serve your time. And maybe you want to stay. Maybe you do end up loving it like I did. And if you don't, great. Serve your time, get out. I met a lot of people who've regretted not serving. I very rarely have met someone who regretted serving.
Favorite
Awesome.
firearm, personally?
The Garand. I love shooting the Garand. I love taking it to the range. I love giving a clip and letting some kid shoot it, and just everybody grins when that thing goes ping. I love that thing. I don't shoot it the most. It at this point, it serves no inherently practical value whatsoever, but everyone who shoots it just grins when they're done. So yeah, it's got to be my Garand.
Yeah. I love affair with the Garand stopped as soon as I smashed my finger in it, took off a nail.
Got to be careful.
Yeah, I know. I knew what I was doing was wrong.
Like a high school girlfriend. A lot of fun, but a lot of danger in there.
All right, so that's your favorite, I guess, personally owned weapon.
Yeah.
What was your favorite weapon system in the military?
I'm going to go against the grain on this one. Man, a saw in good shape, well-maintained, cleaned. Man, that thing can lay down some scunion, get everyone's heads down. One guy can carry it. It's a little bit heavy, but man, when the saw's working, it's great. Stupidest thing Marines did was get rid of their saws. They're going to miss that someday. It's all this whole myth that if it doesn't hit, it doesn't count. Bullshit. I got shot at, and not one bullet hit me, but boy, a lot of them affected me. So very few people are going to say that. I shot the hell out of the Ma Deuce, the 50 cal. I think it's overrated. Mark 19s, the Hoot, 240s. 240's nice, 60's nice. M4, love my M4. M9, not so much. But man, just when the saw's on, it's great. So.
What optic did you like on those?
ACOG.
ACOG, okay.
Yeah, because up close with a belt fed, you don't need that red dot. You're just spraying. But you want, because this is an 800-meter gun. Mm-hmm. So you want some optics so you can see what you're doing. You can watch those tracers plop in. So it's just a standard TA-31 on a saw, and you got yourself a nice weapon.
Favorite MRE?
Chili Mac, but I haven't eaten MRE since 1996.
I don't blame you.
So, the problem with the Chili Mac is it doesn't come with cheese. You got to have cheese. So you have to find another MRE so you can get the cheese. And you take Chili Mac, heat it up with the cheese, mix it in, take a thing of crackers, crumple it up, put it in there, and 2 bottles of Tabasco. Stir it all up.
You haven't eaten that since the 90s, but you knew your exact recipe.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
So if you didn't eat it since the 90s, you ate something on deployment.
I ate Afghan food.
Okay.
Loved it.
What was
Afghan food.
Describe their cuisine.
I mean, it's like Indian cuisine. It's a rice-based with, fluffy naan. They don't do a roti. They do more of a naan. Although they do, some have roti. I don't like roti. So if you've been to an Indian place, it's very similar. Obviously, no pork. So I love goat, lamb when you could get it. Spiced carrots and raisins, biryani. It's nice spices. Except for camel. Camel is absolutely disgusting. And I think that's because camels are too valuable to just kill them. So I think you only eat camel when the camel just died. But the times I had camel was horrific. But other than that, I loved Afghan food. The fresh naan is just, it's delicious. Never found, I've tried. I go all over the place trying to find the equivalent, and I just can't. So I ate Afghan food.
I know someone, after hearing you disparage camel meat, is going to go out and try and eat some.
Go get him, cowboy. Tell me I'm wrong.
What was wrong? What was off about it? What did it taste like? Try and describe it.
I said I don't throw up. Get me there. gristly and just fat in all the wrong ways. In every way a ribeye is good, camel is bad with fat. And just the flavor itself, I don't know. If you haven't eaten camel, I can't describe it to you.
Okay.
How would you describe lamb to someone who hasn't eaten it?
This is why I'm asking the questions.
I got nothing, man. It just, it tastes like camel, it tastes like crap. That's all I got.
All right. Favorite military uniform or camo color?
Oh, Woodlands.
Okay.
Oh, man. Woodlands. Never should have gotten rid of them.
God's plaid, right?
Freaking Marines playing their stupid little games. Oh, we got to have something different. Oh, we need to have the Canadian digiflag. Oh, my God. They just screwed everything up. What was funny is, so when I was there, we were wearing the UCP, the gray color that everyone hated. And the SF, we were wearing the multi-cam. And the SF explained, well, we have to have this. We have to have the best camouflage. And I'm like, okay, whatever, you're SF. So then they started issuing multi-cam to all the regular guys, right? And then the SF went to wearing Woodland. So it was never about what was best. It was always about what was different. And the fact, yeah, man, Woodland. Woodland with and then the chocolate chip. Because you're going to get issued, like the idea of one camouflage pattern, and you're going to get issued what you need. But I'll say also the gray wasn't that bad in Afghanistan. It camouflaged fine. What screws you up is movement, not your camouflage patterns. So overrated, but man, I miss the old Woodlands.
Makes sense. Favorite military vehicle or aircraft?
Everybody loves the ride. Man, the Humvee. It's a workhorse. Drove one in Bosnia, had a cargo Soskin 998, and then I had the 1152s in Afghanistan. Man, you can do a lot with a Humvee. Everybody loves a ride. Whatever their ride is, they loved it. Had an MRAP, it's too big. I mean, you felt safe in them, but I don't know. I love my Humvees.
How does it feel to be, after such a long military career, made into a plastic figure?
Kind of a hoot.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a kid. I played with them when I was a kid. My kids played with them. I played with them with my kids. We'd set them up, and I'd have to explain what the hell a mortar was and why it goes behind. And the mortar team's got to have a radio guy, and you got to have your support by fire position over here with your guy kneeling with the crew served, and then you got the idiot assaulter upside down rifle with the bayonet.
You told your kids that was the wrong way to go.
No, I said that's the right way to go. Go out like an absolute animal, man. Just come on, a bayonet kill? That guy was all about the spirit. And, I got the guy with the binoculars, hiding from everything. Oh, yeah. Mine detector, he's there to get shot. So, some of the things like, really? Like this guy, yeah, it's a little iffy. So no, I think it's awesome. I'm just so lucky that millions, but hundreds of thousands of combat vets out there, and I get to be one of 8. That's awesome. I'm stoked. I'm thankful, and yeah, I mean, it's like up there with publishing my book.
It's awesome. Well, I think if anybody deserves it, it's you.
Oh, thanks.
I talked with a lot of people to try and find the right individuals. We're trying to have a cross-section of the entire military over the entire 20 years, different ranks, different types of experience, different things to say. But it was a very easy choice to pick you. You're very unique.
Thank you.
And I think that our country really needs to listen to what you have to say and what you've already said. So I appreciate you not only for serving in the military, but for continuing to fight by writing and informing everyone and making it available to the public. It's extremely important.
Thank you.
So
appreciate that.
I can't wait we're going to go film in a couple minutes.
All right.
Dress you up in your old uniform.
Oh man, it's going to come back to me.
You've talked a lot about loving the combat shirt. So
yeah.
I made sure to get a fresh one. No one's ever worn it before.
I'm not even sure that'll be good, man. Sometimes they got to get broken in a little bit.
Well, the plate carrier is broken in. It
Okay.
smells like the infantry. Someone had some cigarettes in it, and I forgot to try and wash that out. But I figured you might appreciate it.
It's all right.